Hi guys, welcome back. It's UK here. Earlier today I got downloaded from the Wizards website the D&D 5th edition D&D Next playtest. And so I'm just gonna go over my initial thoughts. I've got the document open here on my screen. You can probably horribly see it reflected back in my glasses, so I apologise. I've got to be honest, 4th edition was a huge disappointment to me. I'm one of those people that has this view that something is something because of what makes it up, and I'm a big fan of the sacred cows, as people call it, of D&D. And 4th edition kind of destroyed that for me. It removed so much, or tweaked it enough that it wasn't the same thing. Pathfinder became my game of choice, and I don't think that's going to change, to be honest. I can't see myself, unless 5th edition turns out to be something incredibly amazing, I don't think I'm going to change it when the time comes. Now, admittedly, what we have here on this set of playtest document is obviously not the final product. We are looking at the very basics of the system, the very basics of mechanics, just so that Wizards can see what it is that people like, don't like, what works and what doesn't work. And with that in mind, I'm just going to go through a few of these things and make a thing for me, and break a few things. One, as I've got here on the basic rules, it's fairly much the same. It's a D20 roll plus modifiers to achieve a target number. Basically what was introduced with the D20 system with 3rd edition. But even then, it's the same sort of thing that's gone back all the way through to basic edition, basic D&D back in the day. So, not going to grab on that. Saves. Well, saves are now tied into your ability scores. And I've got to say, well, it perhaps works, but again, it's breaking the sacred cows for me. I'll admit that the original saves were a bit cumbersome. 3rd edition did the right thing and basically turned it into 3 types of saves, because that's all you're going to need. Your fortune save, your reflex save, and your will save. Now you've got a strength save, a dex save, a con save, int, whiz, charisma. And it's basically, you have to make a test, so you roll against the relevant stat. It's the DC whatever, and you roll D20 and modify by the stat score modifier. Yes, it's simple, but again, it's dragging away from what made D&D, in my mind, D&D. But it's a simple system. It's something that new players coming into the game will be able to pick up quite easily, I think. What I don't like in this, following on from this, is there doesn't appear to be any skills. There's no proficiencies. Instead, now, if you want to do something, again, it's just based off of your relevant stat. And I'm not keen on that. I like a game system to have a set of skills. It helps to diversify the party, because although I'm sure when the final product comes out, it will be a case of rogues, thieves type characters will be better at doing such and such, and trap finding and disarming traps and picking locks. But just basing it purely off of the stats with no other skill mechanic just seems a bit bland to me. As we go through this, there's the skills: perception, spotting hidden creatures, so forth. Combat seems to be about the same, nothing major there. One thing that I did notice that, again, for me, I kind of got a knee-jerk reaction off of this, and despite just reading it and thinking about it, I'm still having the same feeling, and that is critical hits. On a critical hit under the D20 system and Pathfinder, you essentially get an extra set of damage. So even your basic longsword or dagger is going to do twice the damage that you would normally roll. Certain things like a bow will do 3 times the damage. With this, you don't get that. You just get maximum damage. And what doesn't feel right for that is, even back in the days of basic 1st and 2nd, that didn't really have this sort of mechanic, We always used to do, you've got a natural from 20 and you hit, you've got a critical hit, you always did double damage. Now back in the day it was a case of re-rolled and you doubled. Under 3rd edition it made it a point of saying you rolled twice as though you hit twice and applied the damage together. That makes more sense to me than just going here, have maximum damage, because the maximum damage on, let's say, a longsword is like a D8 damage plus your strength mod, whereas under Pathfinder and D20 system you'd be rolling 2d8 plus your strength mod. The whole point of getting the natural 20 is, it's a big, oh yeah, and you've done that extra damage that could help you take the opponent or the monster or whatever out of the fight. Max damage just seems a bit meh to me, to be honest. Hit points seem to be about the same. I don't mind the dying stuff and the death. They seem to have basically taken that from Pathfinder, which is quite good. One thing I'm not so sure about though for this is the resting period. You've got short rests and long rests, and you can get hit dice back and you can recover spells. The problem is that I don't see enough in this to gauge whether this is a good or a bad sort of part of the system. Mainly because there is always the issue in a lot of D&D and Pathfinder of what they call the 15-minute adventuring day, because you go through and you burn your spells out in the first couple of encounters and that's it. And I know the whole thing they tried to do with 4th was to try and get away from that. So you got spells that were usable once a day, once per encounter, every round, that sort of thing. That didn't work, and I think when they update the playtest rules and give you a little bit more, which I hope they do, and they don't just leave it at this. I hope they add something to explain the resting a bit better. Because so far you have in here is a short rest is X amount, short period. You've got to have a minimum amount of 1 hit point to do it, and you regain. If you've got a healer's kit, you can regain health. Long rest is a number of hours, as is standard, and again you get some small benefit back. I don't know. I wanted them to add a bit more to that. I know that sounds really silly because that is fairly simple, but I know that it's going to be one of those things that when I try this with my guys, it could come up, and it's going to be a case of I'm going to have to make a decision. They should have added a little bit more in on that. The conditions, things like blinded, charmed, prone, paralysed and so on, seem to be okay, nothing wiggly there. Armour and equipment. The armour seems to be about right. It's a minimum armour class plus a dex or a half dex modifier, or in the case heavy armour it's just the number, and a bonus from shields. That seems fair enough. Can't grumble on that. Without having looking through it properly, it still seems that the economy is slightly out because of the way money's done. Comparing items, I mean by that. Damages seem to have changed on some of it. I mean, where are we? Longsword is still D8, but where was it? Morningstar is now D10. Lance is D10, and so forth. Minor changes like that seem a little odd, but fair enough. You've got a reasonable starting adventuring gear. Nothing out of the ordinary leaps out at me there. Then we get to magic. Now, again, something that leaps out at me here is there is nothing to differentiate with the spells you've got here, whether anything is arcane or divine, and I'm wondering whether that's part of the playtest or whether they've somehow decided to combine all magic together. The only different thing you've got here is that spells are listed as first level abjuration or second level enchantment or second level evocation, that sort of thing. There are spells that we know. You've got burning hands, magic missile, charm person and the like. You've got a couple of new ones: Crusader Strike, Battle Psalm, Healing Word. It seems that they've taken out things. You haven't got like the Cure Light Wounds or anything like that in here. Healing Word seems to have replaced that. I don't know. Again, this is one of those things where without seeing the whole and finalised product, it's difficult to tell. But again, I like, as I said at the beginning, certain sacred cows. That means that in the healing spells, I want them to be Cure Light, Cure Moderate, Cure Serious. I don't know. It kind of rankles me a little bit, but you know, I can appreciate that they're trying to make this something of their own. And finally, at the bottom of the spells, you have Turn Undead. And I don't know whether this means that it's now a spell rather than a cleric effect. Again, if it's a spell and not a standard ability a cleric gets, you're breaking the Sacred Cows thing for me. Now, that's pretty much all you've got here. You do get in the document 4 sample character sheets. You do get a how to DM, but I'm pretty sure if you've already downloaded this and you're going to partake in it, you already know how to DM. They also give you a small bestiary, which reminded me very much of 2nd edition, which was quite nice because I liked how 2nd edition laid out its monsters. And then you get a adventure. You get a updated version of the Keep on the Borderlands Caves of Chaos, which is kind of interesting. I expected them to throw in something new, but obviously they're using that as an example. Pardon me. Okay, so to try and wrap this up, basically this, now again I will point out that this is the public playtest, so you're not getting the full product, you're not getting perhaps the exact wording that the finalised product will have or anything like that. You just have to take this as what it is. However, that in mind, this reminds me an awful lot of basic D&D. It basically reminds me of the old Red Box box set, which was good for its time. I enjoyed it. I couldn't play it now. I know I'm doing this for personally this whole back to basics sort of thing, but that level of simplicity is, you know, I'm sorry, you need a bit more than that. So I'm hoping that there is obviously going to be a lot more to this game than just what they've got here. I'm sure there is, but going by this, I was a little bit disappointed. I was expecting there to be probably twice the pages on this to give you a bit more, because you're obviously missing things like feats or whatever it's going to have for this version. Yeah, it's a little too basic. I think my players will say the same thing. I know one or two of them will also have the same feeling that I do with regards to the Sacred Cows. There are certain things that make D&D D&D, and this is missing some of them. It's going to be interesting to try out, though. You never know. Once you get into it and play it, you know, whole things may change. I think looking at it, it's going to probably be a nice means of Wizards of the Coast getting new blood in, because let's face it, the 4th edition rules and the 3rd edition rules and Pathfinder are fairly chunky, and there could be something that's turning off a lot of new players, and something as simple as this might be a great way of getting people into the hobby and into tabletop role playing, which is, let's face it, what we need at this point in time. So just going by this, I don't think it would cause me to change my game. If they released D&D next 5th edition, you know, I'll read through it, but going by this, I'm just sticking with Pathfinder. I think it's pretty much D&D for a lot of people now, myself included. I hope Wizards of the Coast do well with their 5th edition, but we shall have to see really once it gets released whether that's the case or not. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the D&D playtest document. Interested to see what you guys think. I know a few of you have already done vids out there. and they've been quite interesting as well. Some good different counterpoints. So until next time, take care, good gaming.